In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a nice strike-through effect here on our scale here. And what is very important is we want to make sure that if we would zoom in, we get this rotated effect. If let's zoom in here, you can see here, once we rotate this, or the scale rotates, the line, the strike-through effect will be rotated as well along with it. So we will understand the length of the text here, but also any movements if ever. So let's start to look how to do this. So let's start to look at how to add the strike-through effect on the X scale based on values in Chart.js. And this is a real tricky one. So the first thing what we need is we need to go to chartjs3.com getting started to get a border template. This link you can find as well in the description box. Once you're on here, copy this chunk of code. If you want to understand this code, make sure you watch this video here. We'll paste this in there. I'll cut out the title. Put it in here, save, refresh. There we are. Let's maximize the chart by saying 80% on the width. Save, refresh. Now we have this. What I want to do is I want to work on putting a strike through if the value would be 0. So I'm going to grab 1 and put this on 0. Save, refresh. There we are. Next, what I want to do is, because to create the strike through, we cannot do that on the scale, or there might be some tricks on doing it within the scale here, but I have not figured that out so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a simple plugin that will analyze if something would be a value of 0, in that case strike through. So I'm going to say comma, plugins, bracket, and then I'm going to say here a scale line. Copy this. Slash slash, I'll say here this will be the plugin block, constant equals that, ID equals the same, and then, oh, not like that, comma, and I'm going to say here, when would we like draw it, we're going to say after the data sets has been drawn at that moment, we will draw the strike through. And that doesn't really matter because the skills are usually drawn before we draw the data sets. But anyway, it doesn't matter, it will not impact us. So we say chart arcs plugin options. We won't be using the last two, so that doesn't matter. And then we're going to do here an object destructuring. If you don't understand object destructuring, what I'm doing right now, please watch my video in the description box, understanding object destructuring for Chartjs. So then what I need here is the CTX, data, and then we can probably use the scales as well. Then I'll use the X and Y value. So once we did this, I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say here ctx.save. And this will be important later on, especially when we're doing the rotation and the translate of our canvas blocks. So next what I need to do, because we're going to work with rotation, so we need to have a constant with angle. And because the rotations are being calculated in math.pi, or in other words in pi. But that's a problem for us because that's slightly more tricky. So what we're going to do is math.pi divided by 180 degrees. Because 1 pi equals a half circle. That is 180 degrees. So 2 pi equals a full circle. So to calculate then every angle over degrees, we just do it like this. So we divide a half circle by 180 degrees, you get 1 degree, and from there on, it's very easy for us to understand and calculate. So now we have all of this, and we have this save here, but I'll probably have to put it in a for each loop. And the reason why is, what I want to do is I want to loop through all of these items and then analyze if a certain data point has a value of 0. If that is the case, in that case, strike through. If it's not the case, I want it just to be shown there's no line needed or strike through needed. So what we're going to do here now is the following. I'm going to say here a console log and show you how do we get all these data labels. So we're going to say X, save, and if I refresh now, open up developer tab, you can see here we have this animation. Scroll down here and then we go into the ticks. You see here the ticks, we get a lot of information here and it tells us the index number. The value equals the index number, which is 0, and this is 6. Value 6 equals Sunday, as you can see here, because it's an index array. It's being calculated with zero-based calculation. So now we have this here. This information for us important. You can say dot ticks, and we can do a for each loop here. You can say dot for each, And then we're going to say here the following. We're going to say for every tick, what we need here is as well the index number. And I'm going to create a function error expression because it's a callback functionality. Now, what we can do here, if I do a console log and we just say here the tick, we will probably get the specific tick itself. This is important because we will need later on the label text. And the label text must be a strike through, but we have to make sure that it understands how big the label text is, because maybe this is not Thursday but a long word compared to the others. So we have to make sure that the line will strike through from beginning to the end of the label itself. So what we can do here is, maybe you can do that right now. We're going to say here constant. And then what I will do is I'm going to say here the text width. I want to measure the text width. And the text width, how do we get them? You see here the label itself, which is the text. So we're going to say here ctx.measure text. That's a built-in canvas command. And then we're going to grab here tick.label. We don't have to put an index number because it understands automatically because of the for each loop. Then we say a dot width to get the width value. If I have this and do a console log now, you will see we get now the coordinates, or how many pixels in width every single text is. So you can see here it loops many times, but basically it's all the same. It's about 20 to maximum, I guess, 24 pixels, which is correct because probably one of this Monday maybe or Wednesday is quite thick. But if I would extend this, let's make this Monday. We're going to make this Monday's super long text. Save, refresh. You can see here now Sally 1 is much longer, and as we have longer text, it starts to rotate. And this is interesting. Later on we're going to work on that as well. That's why we need the rotation. So you see here we have the information of how long it is. So we know if ever we have the length of the line, we know how many pixels in length it needs to be. So now we have this information. Now we can go with the next one. So we have the save here. I'm going to cut this save and put it up in here. This is very important. Make sure you have it in here or even just above here. I like it more. And the reason why for this is our default state. When we later on reset it, it must be in this. If you don't do this, you get these weird animations like a rotating swing or something like that. It just will not look good. So this is very important. So now what I want to do here is two things. Number one, we want to make sure that we want to strike through that. And number two, if we have these rotations, in that case we need the line to strike through in a rotated manner like this. So there are two items here, but for now let's start with the simplest and easiest way. It's just the basic one. So there we are. So then what I'm going to do here is we're going to say here ctx.begin path, meaning I'm going to draw a new line, but this line is independent from anything else. And you need to do this because sometimes items bleed over in color, or the line suddenly connects to somewhere here because somewhere it didn't close properly, and then you pick it up and it will continue on assuming that it's part of that shape. So that's why we say here independent new shape, do not connect anything with this shape. So then what I want to do here is let's give it a color, or let's give it a stroke style. That's a color of the border, and we can make this just gray. I'll make it British gray for now. And then ctx.line width, and this line width can be 3 pixels, so it's nice and easy to spot for now. Once we did this, here we can put in a position. So let's start with the position, but afterwards we're going to change it. So I'm going to just draw a simple line so you know that we have a line working. So I'm going to say ctx, and then we say here move to. And here we can say this is the x and y coordinates, and I'll just start here and say 10 pixel by 10 pixels. And then I'm going to say ctx.line to, where we're going to say if this is the starting point, where's the line going to connect to? Let's make this a horizontal line, which would be just the width of the text. I'm going to put that in there as the x, and then the y will be just maintained on the same position. So if I do this, and then I'm going to say ctx.stroke to draw the line. Save this, refresh. You can see here we get this And if I would make, and I guess they are now stacked on top of each other, but that's alright. But if I will make this Monday, you will see that this one will be longer. But they're all stacked on each other, so that's probably an issue here. So if I would say here, just simply, I'm going to say here is the index, and I'll say index multiply by 5, and then, so we start with 10 pixels and then plus index 5. Very simple. So you can see all these lines. There we are. You can see the lines, and this line would match this, that line would match this, etc., etc. So that's all clear. But this is not what I want. The reason why I don't want this is, first of all, it is, which one is 0? It's only Thursday. So we want to make sure that it's intelligent enough to understand we only need one specific item here. So what I'm going to do here is create an if statement. This if statement, we're going to cut out everything and put it between there. And then what I'm going to do is go there. Alright. Now I'm going to say the following. Let's remove all of this excess space. Now I'll say here the following. And we have this data object here. And this data object is a reference to this here. And all I need to do now is to loop through all these data here. So how do we get there from data? That data set index 0. And then data, whatever the index is, and check if which one is 0. If it is 0, draw, else don't draw. Quite straightforward. So I'm going to say here, data sets index 0 dot data index. And the index is a reference of this one here. Then we're going to say if equals strict 0. In that case, we're going to draw. So if I save this now and refresh, you will see that now only Thursday is being shown. And that's correct, because Thursday is the 4th item here, and that is 0. So now it understands that part. Alright, now we have this. Now let's start to work with the real tricky parts. What I'm going to do here is we're going to just do it in here. Enter, enter. And this is the reason why we have the save here. This is very important. This one must always be above in this part. So then what I'm going to say here is the following. I need to create a item. It needs to be positioned accordingly, and maybe we can even do that right now by showing you the following. I'm going to say here, we're going to check if there would be a rotation. Right now there's no rotation. If you're wondering what I mean, well, remember what I said with Monday very long. If I have this, oh, that's even, I guess if I modify like this, what will happen is Chartjs will calculate to fit the scale labels nicely. And if it needs to rotate so it will fit more better, it will do that. But of course, this is tricky because look, our text or our line here is just a straight line and it doesn't match this here. And the reason why this is because we need to work with rotation. Rotation helps us to move the line properly, or at least this line will be rotated along with our scale. So we're going to check on that. And this is the most tricky part of it. So first of all, we're going to say here, let's see, how can you find the rotation? So let me do a console log, and I'm going to show you here .x, save, refresh, and I realize that this will just loop through this. I don't want that. It will make it harder to find for us. Just put it here up, save, rotate. Alright, it already loops it, but doesn't matter. But not that many times as if you're doing it in the for loop here, because it will loop then times 7. Anyway, in here, what we need to do is we need to go into the label items. This information here gives us, or this object gives us the following. The rotation, -0, meaning that it will be just straight. So there's no movement, just 0 basically. And then we have as well, if you scroll down here, we have the text offset, that will become important later on, and the translation. This translation is very important because that will help us with the rotation. So later on we will work on this, but you can see here, it is right now 0. So if I now squeeze this a bit, refresh, we should see now the same information with a rotation. Let's look for that. Now we have a rotation of -0++. Alright, so you can see here, now it rotates really. If it's 0, it would be straight. This is important for us. So what we're going to do here is, basically, how do we get there? We say _, let's see what's the name, label items. Where are you? Label items. There we are. Let's put it, remove it underscore. So if you're wondering why underscore, well, I understood from the Chartjs moderators, if there's an underscore here, that might be that in a newer version like Chartjs 4, version 4, they might change the structure. Basically, they're looking at how they can change these structures into a more better structure, apparently. So that's why. But in any version of Chartjs 3, there's no problem. So if this will be a Chartjs 3.9, well, this is 3.9, but it will be 3.10, 3.11, etc., etc. No problem, it will maintain this. But if it's version 4, version 5, etc., etc., then they will have a change. Very important to understand. So now we have this. We're going to grab here. Remember, this is the index of the amount of items we have. Index 0. We're going to grab here. Well, I just say here index. And then what I want to do here is I want to get rotation. Get the rotation here. Dot rotation. So what I want to do now, if I save this, refresh, index is not defined. Why? Because we're outside of our for loop. If I just put it in here, and I guess we could just do a console log as well. Save this, refresh. Now we get here, I guess, everyone have the same angle of rotation here. And this is calculated in pi, math.pi, basically. So this is very important here to understand. Or I'm not even certain if we're going to have this impact here. I'm not even sure about that right now. Anyway, doesn't matter. All what I want to do now is I want to make sure that this will understand, because this is a formula here. And what we want to do is go to the if statement. This if statement will just check, are we rotated, yes or no. If there's no rotation, so I'm going to say equals strict minus 0, meaning you could do 0 as well, but I'll just do minus 0 because that's the response I am getting. If that is the case, we want to get this formula here. No rotation, no special items here. If I save this, refresh, alright, you can see here now it's rotated. Now if I remove this, there we are. Once it's straight, it shows it again. Very important for us, because now we can start to work with the position, but this position here must be done with rotation. So we're going to use now the real important parts, which is CTX.translate. And this one is a very tricky one, including for me. And with CTX translate, you can imagine that you have another item. You can change the position of starting. And it's for me really tricky one to explain as well. But you could almost imagine like a piece of paper on top of our canvas, and that will be basically the starting point, and we could move that. And that's the only way how we can move items into specific location. And what I want to move that here. And you could say, well, why don't we just do it in here? We cannot. And the reason why is because we're going to do rotating formula in here, and that creates that tricky issue. So for this, I need to show you again another item that is also in here. And I think I already showed it, but I'm not sure. Let's make sure you have that one. Alright, so we're going to save this, refresh, open up this. Alright, index is not defined, so we're going to say 0. Save. There we get that one. If I click on this, you can see here we had the translation, this is the rotation, and we have the translation here. And this translation is for us very important. We're going to grab this value here, index 0 and index 1. These two are necessary if we're going to use translate, because there's like a x and y value. Basically the x and y coordinates where we want to start. We want to move that to another starting point. So in here, we're going to say dot translation index 0, and this will be an index. Let's copy this. And this is a real tricky part, even for me. So bear with me. If you don't understand it, just try to follow along. You will eventually see the end result. That's the most important. I'm going to do this. For the y value, basically, that's that one here. So that's the x and y coordinates. Probably indicating 84 pixels to the left or to the right, and then, or basically like this, and then going 400 or 395 pixels down. That's basically what it's saying, if I'm not mistaken. So we have this here, but if I do this right now, save, refresh, alright, that's fine because of this, save, refresh. Now we get this. What happens is it rotates or does something, and it removes the item, or it rotates it outside of the screen area. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say ctx.restore. This here must be together with the save. The save in the beginning would indicate our default setting, and restore would say, alright, let's go back to our saved default setting that we do immediately at the beginning. But you have to do it in the for loop because we're looping through this all the time. You cannot do it outside of the loop or else it will not work. So if I save this right now, refresh, it works here. But you might say, hold on, where's the item? The item is gone. Alright, don't worry about that. We're going to work on this next. So we're going to say here ctx dot, and then we're going to do here the following. We say ctx dot rotate. We're going to rotate basically the item now, and the rotation is, and I realize that probably don't even need to use this one, but the rotation is the one we saw here, is rotation, and that was like this. I think I showed you that previously. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably should see it here. Index 0, of course, because that one was indicating the minus. Alright, there we are. Let's grab this. And rotation. I guess we have it here as well. So we have to rotate, put it in here. Alright, now we have this. So the next thing is starting to work on the formula here. So I have to just double check here now what we have. Alright, because we have here certain formula, but I need to put this now correctly down here. So how do we do this? Well, if we don't have any rotation, because a rotation would indicate a straight line here, in that case x and y will be this. We have to calculate that. We're going to say here 0, because basically with the translate we control the new positioning of it, and we say the position will be just down here, what I showed earlier. So that will be the starting point. So that's why we can say 0. Then we say a comma. What we need to do here is comma. I guess we can do 0 as well for now, and then after we're going to change that. And we say here maybe we keep this on 0, but we want a horizontal. Oh no, we need this one, but we need to move this one. So if I save this, refresh, there we are. Where are we? Aha, there we are. You can see here now we get this proper location. So we are very close now. But remember, we need to have the width. So what I'm going to do here, we have the text width here. And I'm going to do here is the following. This text width measures the text from left to right. As you can see here, we are starting in the center. And this, we can do it by putting 1 pixel here. We're starting exactly in the center, meaning I need to have the text width divided by 2 going in that side, left side, which is negative, and then also going to the right side. So what we're going to do here, we say a minus, and then we do here text width divide by 2, and then I'm going to copy this, and this one we just do plus text width divide by 2. Now we get this. Alright, so we're getting closer to it. So now we have to go down here. So for this down, as I showed earlier, there was a very important value in the labels items. Let's save that, refresh, open up developer again, the developer tab, and then we have here the text offset. This indicates that basically whatever is the text here, the text is basically going down from the scale by 7 pixels. So let's copy this text offset. And we're going to say here, how do we get that text offset? Is basically like this. But this should be then again index. I'm just going to copy this. We say here plus text offset index. And then we're going to do here exactly the same. Save that. Let's comment out this item. Save, refresh. There we are. So now we have that one, and we can do maybe the official color here. RGBA, I think 102, 102, 102. I think number 1 or 0.5, that would be probably the official number. 0.5, I think. That doesn't matter so much. Anyway, I'll just leave it at 1. I'll do it like that. Alright, so we have this, and I think this one looks quite decent. Now it's probably the very similar color. As you can see, if I zoom out, it will not respond here. And that is what we did expect, because we need to fix that one now. So now we have this part done, and let's give this is the straight label position. Alright, so now let's make the label with a rotated label position. Rotated label position, that's the next one here. For that, all we need to do is, first we can just copy this entire function, build it in here, and we're going to just leave these two out for now. But what we do want is to say if the rotation will be smaller than 0. Remember, our rotation here, if you do this, if we rotate, and probably if you will see it in here, you will see that the rotation will be closer to negative 0.02, etc, etc. So it rotates, but it rotates in a negative way. So then we have this one, and now let me just check how can we do this. So if I save that, refresh, there we are, look at that. Oh, you can see here we're getting close to it, but we're moving a bit away, or we're moving too much. And the reason for this is because we have this formula with divide by 2, but now I don't want that. I just want the text width. So this is a slightly different formula, but just only one small difference now. Save that, refresh. Alright, interesting. This works, but I guess here we don't have to do this anymore. Just say here, +1. There we are. Alright, now if I move this, there we are. This looks absolutely phenomenal. It's a real tricky one. And you can see here, as we move, it keeps everything except for this. You can see here what happens here. This is what we call auto skip. Auto skip destroys this structure. There's a way for that around, but I have to study that one more in depth. But for now, this is the best way what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove here, or I want to make sure that auto skip is not active. And the reason why that would make more sense here, if you want to make sure it's visible and you want to put a line through it, then it should be like this. If you would skip it, it doesn't make any sense at all. So what we're going to say here is comma, and then we're going to say auto, in the ticks, auto skip set on false, meaning always show every single item no matter what. And if you look at this now, even if I go closer and closer, you can see it will squeeze each other, but it is always visible. And this here, we can test this again. Let's do another one. Let's put this on 0. And this 0 here, save, refresh. There we are. Now what I want to do is I want to make this extremely long, so we can see if it works. How many times did I save that? 1, 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times additional. So that's 5 extra items. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Save, refresh. And now you can see here, look how beautiful. It works nicely. If I remove another number here, I don't know what that will be, but if I save, refresh, you can see, do we see it somewhere here? That one. Yeah, that's this one here. Apparently it was Friday. You can see Friday is not showing anymore. And that's basically how we can do this. If I move this, you can see it becomes, because the auto skip false, it squeezed them all together, but it will be all keep on showing them. But if I move this again here, it will always make sure it matches nicely. And then if I remove again everything here except for this, let's do it like that. And then we have this here. I'm just going to remove a chunk of it. I have no idea exactly how many. Save, refresh, and you can see here. Alright, this one here probably the Tuesday. We're missing some values. If we do 1, 2, and 3, save. There we are, 1, 2, and 3. So if it is 0, it's being triggered. If it's not 0, if there's no value at all, it will not be triggered. So this is very important. But this is basically the way how you can create a strike through on the scale. So if you enjoyed this video, maybe you want to go even deeper by making these items clickable so that you can open up another link. For example, if you click on it, you will jump to another link. In that case, I'm going to recommend you this video here on how to create clickable X scales with links in Chartjs, where you click one of the scale items here, and then you will be directed to a specific website or somewhere else.